You're listening to the Crystal Bar podcast, where crystals, astrology, and aligned living meet the cycles of the moon and year. I'm Claire, and each week I bring guidance and stories to inspire you to live with clarity, connection, and purpose. So take a deep breath, make this time for you, and let's begin. Really feeling quite autumnal today. Husband laughs every time I say the word autumnal when we're out and about. Not sure what he finds funny about that word. But it is raining. I've got the blanket on. It's still really warm, but I'm pretending. As I look out across the trees, they're doing their false autumn thing with the golden colours appearing where it's obviously just been dry. The breeze is dappling through the leaves and the rain is coming down, but it's still 24 degrees. But do you know what? That's fine. I'm pretending. Arnie looks cozy. Ivy's laying on the stairs, snoring like a trooper. You won't obviously be able to hear her, but she is snoring so well. Just everything feels so cozy this morning and really lovely. I hope you've had a wonderful week. If you haven't, I hope that all of that bad energy is deflected back to where it came from and that good energy shines around you. Imagine that golden bubble around you, like a force field deflecting any negativity back to where it came from. Yeah, so much has been happening here. Lots of fun stuff. My husband built an amazing bench, like an L-shaped bench. Our neighbour's got the most incredible trees, but they're so tall and they block out most of our afternoon sun. But there's one tiny corner of our garden near our old shrubs from our old home. So we've framed them now in an L-shaped bench, and it's so lovely sat there. It's a little heat trap right next to the house. You've got the warmth of the bricks radiating out as well. And I'm going to use this spot for rituals as well. What with a house being quite close behind our garden. And then the other neighbours have got really tall trees as well. The moon peeks between and it shines on that spot. And above me is the crystal bar window. So the moon shines beautifully there and into that window, as does the sun for sun energy as well. So this is why when you say my crystals, when you receive them, are energized, because of that reason. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, this bench is long and it's got so much space for me to lay out my ritualistic items, my crystals safely, so they've still got a bit of warmth from the house as the bricks are warm of the evening. Oh, I'm so happy and so pleased. I've got my space. My neighbours did say they're going to cut down their trees, because actually as well, we've had our trees trimmed in the garden to allow more light in. Ours are nowhere as tall as the neighbours, but they're easier for us to manage now. I've actually kept... Did I tell you about this last week? I think I did, didn't I? That I've kept a piece of trunk. So I'm going to create something with it once it's all dried out. So watch this space there. What else? Oh, my parents visited. That was lovely. They were here while Stuart was creating and working his woodcraft magic. And then my niece has been on holiday in Ibiza, and she's been messaging me great photos and sending the energy of Ibiza over back through her phone. So that was gorgeous. And she's actually had a tattoo. She's had a hibiscus flower on her shoulder, and she's had 1111 on her arm. Now, for our numerology loves, you'll know all about 1111. What a way to add a level of protection and manifestation into her life and her aura. I'm tempted. She did ask me if I was going to get the same one to match her, and I am actually very tempted to do the same thing. But the only thing is, I'm walking a lot. I am working out, not to lose weight. I love how chunky I've got. I mean, a lot of people say I'm not, but compared with the skinny mini size 8 Skeletor I was in my 30s, I like the way I look now, so I'm just trying to tone it up. So I didn't really want anything on my arm. She's got it on the back of her arm, just above the elbow. It looks really cool. It's very dainty, it's a fine line tattoo, it's very pretty, so I think I will follow her in her footsteps, but just once I've done a bit more working out and whatnot. Don't want to distort it if I grow muscles or define my arms in any way. But anyway, I've waffled. I hope you've had a good week. Thank you again for all of your lovely crystal orders. Welcome to the Crystal Academy to those of you who have signed up to one of our courses. That was great fun to see so many of you who are now embarking on another part and a new aspect of your life. What else? Oh, crystals of the month. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you know what? We've got another busy podcast. This week is going to be a little bit different because we have something very special happening in our skies. This Friday, 28th of August, we've got our full moon in Pisces, and this is going to be quite special. Whilst we had the solar eclipse, which was absolutely beautiful, stunning, we obviously couldn't look at it with our naked eyes. But this one, you can. If you dare to get up at 3:33 in the morning, you will see something quite spectacular. Because it is a partial lunar eclipse. And if you are here in the UK, you are willing to get up, as I say, you actually have the chance to see it. So today we're going to do an eclipse episode. We're going to talk about what is physically happening above us and why this full moon is in Pisces astrologically, the energy traditionally associated with a Pisces full moon, some of my favourite crystals for letting go, and I've got a full moon ritual for you that is a little bit different from the usual writing something down and burning it ritual. We're also going to finish with a collective card reading for us all, but rather than going into all of your signs, which I've done already on Instagram, so I didn't want to bore you all, I thought we'd do a collective card reading. But before we get into that, thank you again so much for all of your lovely feedback on last week's episode. I really enjoyed creating something a little different and delivering into the ether a new way of honouring those beautiful women that came before us and delving into the history and magic of the past. And judging by your messages, you did enjoy it too, so thank you. We will absolutely do some more historical episodes, but for now, a huge thank you to everyone who subscribed to Crystal of the Month. I can announce that your September parcels are now on their way. And I'm not going to tell you what the crystal is because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But this month you have a beautiful large pebble-sized crystal coming your way. And your cosmic letter, which I've curated especially for September. And I've popped an extra tiny little surprise in there too. Oh, my phone is locked. Hang on. Let me just make sure that you are still recording. Yes, I think you are. So apologies if there was any blips there. My loves, if you've missed September, you can absolutely now subscribe for October through the Crystal Bar website. It's £11, you know what I mean, per month. And every month you'll receive your crystal and cosmic letter through the post. Right, let's get into the eclipse. My loves, what is actually happening? Because, well, what I tell you is this. A couple of weeks ago, we had our solar eclipse. During a solar eclipse, the moon passes between the earth and the sun. So from our perspective, the moon moves across the face of the sun, and a lunar eclipse reverses the situation. So this time, the earth, we are sandwiched between the sun and the moon. And the sun is shining towards the moon as usual, but Earth gets in the way, and our planet casts its shadow across the lunar surface. I love thinking about that because when you're standing outside watching a lunar eclipse, you're quite literally looking at the shadow of the planet you're standing on, moving across another moon, another world. I'm going to call it another world. And this is a partial lunar eclipse, as I said. And although it is a really substantial one, maximum eclipse will be about 94% of the moon being in the Earth's darker umbral shadow. So here in the UK, I'm just trying to work out on my little chart here. Here in the UK, I didn't make notes, I'm so sorry. But here in the UK, the first much more subtle penumbral stage begins approximately 2:23 a.m. At 3:33 a.m., oh my gosh, listen, remember last week what I said about 333 following me? There it is. But at 3:33 a.m., the partial eclipse begins and Earth's darker shadow starts visibly moving across the moon. Then at approximately 5:12 a.m., we reach maximum eclipse. So my love, set your alarms. But interestingly, the full moon itself, it's exactly only a few minutes later. Its peak happens, a few minutes later at approximately 5:18 a.m. British Standard Time. So let me say those times again. So I was looking at my little chart. Now I've written them down. So if you get up, set your alarms for 2:23, you'll start seeing the Earth's shadow moving across the moon. Then at 3:33, the partial eclipse begins and Earth's darker shadow starts visibly moving across the moon. So that's the time to set your alarm if you really want to see the shadow taking a chunk out of that moon surface. Then approximately 5:12 a.m., we reach maximum eclipse. But what we call the peak of the full moon, that happens at 5:18. So that's something very different, energetically, the peak. So it's going to be a really lovely way to wake up. I wake up at around 5. I will be sticking my head out the window if it's clear. Just like last time, do you remember? In January, February, on the last eclipse season, I literally hung out of my window to film that eclipse happening. It was incredible. It's still, I think I said this last week as well. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's still on my moon stories if you have a look on the highlights on my Instagram. But wow, if you are getting up to see it, I would personally aim for somewhere between 3:30 and 4:30 a.m. onwards. And by then the eclipse should be very obvious and you'll be able to watch it deepen towards maximum. You will need a fairly clear view towards the west-southwest because by maximum eclipse, the moon will already be quite low in the sky. And unlike a solar eclipse, as I said, you don't need eclipse glasses to watch a lunar eclipse. You're simply looking at the moon. I really hope you get to experience it, my loves. But why does a full moon happen with... Oh, sorry, we had a glitch in the matrix there. Mercury's definitely doing its thing at the moment. We've got Mercury Kazemi tomorrow, and Mercury has moved into Virgo. So even though it's not Mercury being in retrograde, it's definitely having some glitches on the communication aspect. So apologies about that. There was a problem with my microphone. A big flash came up. Shall we get on though? Shall we continue? But why is the full moon in Pisces? Right. So astrologically, a full moon happens when the sun and moon are opposite one another in the zodiac. We're now fully into Virgo season, so the sun is travelling through Virgo and the full moon sits opposite it in Pisces. And that gives us a really interesting axis because you've got Virgo associated with order, routines, practicalities, discernment, organisation, and the details of everyday life. And then you've got Pisces sitting opposite Virgo, and that is associated with intuition, imagination, emotion, compassion, dreams, and the things that aren't always quite so easy to put into neat little boxes. So rather than thinking of Virgo and Pisces as fighting one another, think about what happens when you bring the two together. So basically, you should be asking yourself questions like, what do I know because I have evidence for it? And what do I know because something inside me keeps telling me? And that's a really interesting question for this full moon. You've got Pisces as a water sign. And water doesn't stay rigid, it moves around obstacles, it changes shape and it flows. And sometimes we can become so focused on controlling exactly how something should happen that we don't notice another route opening up beside us. And that is where this full moon can give us something useful to reflect on. This isn't about abandoning common sense or ignoring facts. This is simply recognizing that intuition and logic doesn't always have to be enemies. Sometimes your instincts notice something before your conscious mind has worked out why. So you might be asking yourself, why does an eclipse feel different? From an astronomical perspective, an eclipse simply happens because the sun, earth and moon align closely enough for Earth's shadow to fall across the moon. Astrologically, eclipses have traditionally been treated as significant turning points. They're often associated with culmination and revelation, endings and changes of direction. And because this is a full moon eclipse, I think it works beautifully with something. Full moons have been long used for in modern spiritual practice. Sorry, I was completely put off then. Just want to mention this actually. Dolly Parton, the Queen of Country, obviously passed away last night. Not obviously, not everybody may know. Such sad news, and they're just showing a clip actually on the TV. I've got it on silent. Oh my goodness. And she is stood there in front of a full moon in a sparkly regalia with stars. How fitting is that? It's just sent me left wing. It's like Dolly Parton is saying, "Hi guys." And now she stood there. And as I said that, she went, "Hi guys," with her arms in the air like she used to, almost like goalposts, like that shape. Wow. I feel like that was Dolly saying hello to us all. How incredible is that? Sorry, I've completely digressed. It caught me off guard. Right, what was I saying? Yes, we were saying, why does this eclipse feel differently? Because this is a full moon eclipse, I think it works beautifully with something that full moons have long been used for in modern spiritual practice, and that is release. The word release, releasing things that no longer serve us. But releasing something doesn't necessarily mean going for it big time and cutting something out of your life. Sometimes release is simply thinking to yourself that you're not carrying that into the next chapter. And this could be simple things like an expectation of someone that's not serving up and being who you thought they might be. It could be a habit that's not aligned with you. It could be this old version of yourself that you've outgrown. It could be a responsibility, do you know what, that was never actually yours. It could be a plan that no longer fits with who you are. It could be an opinion somebody else has had of you. I just feel like I want to say, which bitch? They'll know because they'll be listening. Sorry, it's an inside joke. But even the belief that something has to happen in one particular way, for it to be successful. You stop trying to be the perfectionist and it has to be this certain way. It's got to work a certain way. Just let it go. Let it go. And this is where I want to talk to you about crystals this week. So I thought sorry, my microphone went funny again. So sorry. Okay, I'm back. Crystals for letting go. I had to talk about this. As I say, full moons are spiritually about letting go and closing the door and ending chapters and moving away. That eclipse wobbly energy might be scaring you a bit and you might be thinking, do I do this on a full moon eclipse? But you know what? I would, because it's stronger. It's going to purge everything that no longer belongs in your life. But let's talk about those crystals for letting go. One of my favourites for this full moon is smoky quartz. Smoky quartz is traditionally associated with grounding, clearing, and releasing what we no longer want to hold on to. So if your mind feels very busy around this full moon, hold a piece in your hand, sit somewhere comfortable and use it almost like an anchor. Instead of trying to force your thoughts away, simply notice them and keep bringing them back to your attention, back to the weight and texture of the crystal in your hand, and allow yourself to anchor into the ground. Then we have black obsidian. Obsidian is a volcanic glass formed when silica-rich lava cools rapidly without having enough time to form a crystalline structure. Spiritually, it has become strongly associated with truth and protection and bringing hidden things to the surface. I didn't know if you knew that about obsidian, but it's quite mystical. This is one I would use when the thing you're releasing requires honesty. This is the one I would use when the thing you're releasing requires honesty. And I want you to ask yourself while you're holding your obsidian, what am I pretending doesn't bother me anymore? This is what you want to let go. The things you're skating over, you're skirting over the real issues. You're holding on to something because you feel like you're going to let people down. But truthfully, please, you don't necessarily have to do anything immediately with the answer, but just acknowledging it can be so powerful. And then there is amethyst. There's a child screaming outside, which is absolutely fine. They're having great fun on the summer holidays in the puddles, but I do apologise if you can hear screaming. So my third crystal is amethyst. I'm sure all of you listening, if you are a crystal collector, will absolutely know amethyst is beautiful for reflection, for spiritual awareness, and creating that little bit of space between a thought and your reaction to it. Hold your amethyst, keep it close by, put it on your bedstand, so when you're trying to work out whether it's something you're thinking about just for the sake of thinking about, or whether it's your intuition, lay it by your bedstand. Ask it to bring the answer to you in your dreams. Now, bear in mind, it could be an unsettled night when you do this, because amethyst will work to find out why you are stressed and why you are feeling the way you are. It will bring those feelings to the surface for you to deal with and work through. So don't pop it under your pillow. Simply put it by your bed, on your bedstand or your bedside cabinet, and just let the energy flow. You might want to do it through meditation rather than sleep, but it will bring to surface what is really driving you down. And then finally, I thought, because this is Pisces, I really like aquamarine. Its connection with water makes it perfect symbolically, but it's also traditionally associated with emotional clarity and communication and moving with greater ease. Again, just keep it in your aura field, wear it, put it in your pocket. If you've got a point, just have it on the table near where you're sat. Just keep it around you though, even in your mind's eye, in your eye's view. But you don't need all four. Just choose one. In fact, if you already have a crystal at home that you feel drawn towards for this full moon, just use that. Your practice doesn't need to involve buying something new every time the moon changes. Just work with what you have and the energy. Let your intuition draw you towards what you need. Because as I say at the end of every podcast and video, remember, the right crystal will always find you. So I promised you something different for the full moon ritual, and this is the 2-path experiment. We're not going to be burning a piece of paper on this full moon, but for this, you're going to need your crystal, 2 small pieces of paper, a pen, and 2 cups, glasses, or little bowls. On your first piece of paper, write, "I keep carrying this." On the second, write, "I make space for this." Now put each piece of paper underneath a different cup or bowl. Take your crystal and sit between them. Then give yourself 1 minute. Don't analyze it. Don't try to come up with something profound. And then I want you to pick up your pen and write the very first thing that comes into your mind for each statement. What are you still carrying? And what would you genuinely like to make room for? Now comes the interesting part. Fill both cups or bowls with water. the cup sitting over what you're carrying, represents the energy, time, or attention you're currently giving it to. The second represents what you'd rather be giving that energy to. Slowly pour the water from the first cup into the second. Watch the first one empty. Watch the second one fill. That's it. I don't want you to do a dramatic declaration. Nothing needs to be destroyed. You've simply created a physical representation of moving your attention from one thing towards another. So keep the second piece of paper somewhere you will see it over the coming weeks and place your crystal on top of it. Please don't drink the water if your crystal has been placed inside it. In fact, for this ritual, keep your crystal completely separate from the water. Simply visualize and completely immerse yourself. This is just a very different thing to do on the full moon. So, just to repeat that very quickly, grab your crystal, 2 small pieces of paper, a pen, and 2 cups and glasses or little bowls. On your first piece of paper, write, I keep carrying this. On the second, write, I make space for this. Now, put each piece of paper underneath a different cup or bowl or glass, whatever you've chosen. Take your crystal and sit it between them. Then give yourself 1 minute. Pick up your pen and write the very first thing that comes into your mind for each statement on another piece of paper. What are you still carrying? And what would you genuinely like to make room for? Fill both cups up with water. The cup sitting over what you're carrying represents the energy, time, or attention you're currently giving to it. The second represents what you'd rather be giving that energy to. Slowly pour the water from the first cup into the second. Then watch the first one empty. Watch the second one overfill. And that's it. You've simply created a physical representation of moving your attention from one thing towards another. And keep the second piece of paper somewhere you will see it over the next weeks and place your crystal on top of it. Okay, right. So, I have got my cards. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear me shuffling because I do an A grade editor. I have got an A grade editor and it sometimes removes all the background noise, which is sometimes annoying when I say, oh, can you hear the crow? And you can't hear it. But anyway, I'm shuffling. But before I draw these cards, take a second wherever you are. You might be walking the dog, you might be driving, making a cup of tea, cleaning the house, or sitting quietly listening. And I want you just to ask, right? I want you to ask what would be useful for you to understand as you move through this full moon. As I shuffle these cards, I'm going to pick 3 cards and then I will now interpret them. So give me just a second. Right. Okay, my loves. So I have my 3 cards and right. Are we ready? So my first card for us all is Snake Spirit, and this is Time to Heal. This feels incredibly appropriate, I have to say, for a full moon and eclipse because Snake Spirit is about shedding what has become too restrictive. It could be an old version of yourself. It could be an old emotional pattern, but mostly it could be a story you keep returning to or something you've simply outgrown. So, my loves, I would interpret this as stop trying to carry an old version of yourself into this new chapter. Healing here isn't necessarily about fixing something. It can simply be recognizing that you don't need it anymore. By the way, I'm using my pack here, the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron Reid. For those of you who book card readings with me, this is my pack. This is my go-to pack. Now, if I was to read for you each card, it would be like 10 minutes long, and the rest. So I'm just giving you a tiny little glow of what I'm getting for us as a collective for the full moon. My next card I've picked for us all is Dear Spirit, bring a gentle touch. And this changes this energy beautifully because it says that whatever you're working through doesn't need to be forced, and you don't have to have a huge breakthrough. You don't have to rip the past apart looking for answers, but there might be something you're being far harder on yourself about than you need to be. So work through it with kindness rather than judgment. And then my last card I drew was Butterfly Spirit, which is transformation is beautiful. And this feels like the outcome of the first two cards. So you're shedding with Snake, you're softening with Deer, and you're transforming with Butterfly. And there is something changing within the collective during this full moon. And Butterfly Spirit is reminding us not to cling to the familiar simply because we recognize it. So I think the overall message for you all, my lovely, is, excuse me, what do you need to work through this full moon? Well, the version of you that you're ready to outgrow, let yourself shed it without judging yourself for ever having been that person in the first place. And you don't need to know exactly what comes next. But the butterfly doesn't return to the cocoon simply because the cocoon was once home. My loves, you know what you need to do. It's time. You are ready. It's time to move on. Now, there's nothing specific here like my other readings that I do individually, because this is for the collective, so take from it what you will. Just to let you know though, my card readings are now open for a new season. They're now available via my website, www.thecrystalbar.co.uk. Just click on book a card reading, and then I think there's another thing you click on and there's all the dates there. 4-card year ahead are now back and ready. 3-card my standard and 1 card from £11.11 are now available right now. I just want to say as well, on the back of that card reading, just look at the thing that's being illuminated. Full moons reveal, or eclipses obscure the light temporarily, but they also make us pay attention to something we might ordinarily overlook. And don't automatically read this as something negative if you felt that from that reading, okay? I was trying to be positive. Just sometimes what we're leaving behind wasn't once exactly right for us, and we've simply outgrown this energy. And this is where the energy moves next. We've got something very exciting. Transformation is coming for us all. And what becomes possible when we stop using so much energy and holding on to what has already run its course? When we let that go, brilliant golden opportunities arrive and incredible magic happens. My loves, when we next speak, it will be September. When we meet again next week, can you believe it? How did that happen? There is a genuine seasonal shift I'm feeling, but it's beginning here in the UK. Because obviously, as of Tuesday, meteorological autumn begins. But that isn't astrology. This isn't a spiritual thing. This is meteorologists. I can never say the word. This is meteorologists dividing the seasons into 3-month blocks. So September, October and November make up meteorological autumn. Astronomical autumn, though, comes later. This is where we all celebrate the equinox. And of course, in the UK this year, that happens in the early hours of the 23rd of September. We'll talk much more about the equinox when we get closer to it, but you can already see signs beginning. The physical signs are happening. The daylight is changing. The evenings are gradually drawing in. Plants are changing. Temperatures are, well, it's 24 today, but the nights are certainly a lot colder. And as I'm recording this, I've actually got rain, as I said at the beginning. It's the first, in fact, no, it stopped. The wispy clouds back, the blue sky's coming, and the 26-degree temperature is coming back. But you know what? It rained for what feels like the first time in ages, because the few showers we have had have been overnight. So it was wonderful to see. And in fact, I've just recorded, before I started recording this, the pigeons on the road outside my house. laying flat out, lifting their wings up and having a shower. It was so beautiful. Instead of having to use my bird bath that I'm filling up daily, they were loving life. I can hear the crows, the magpies, the pigeons all singing. Haven't heard many songbirds recently, sadly, but I have to just say it's been so beautiful watching them enjoy that piece of rain. Oh, I wish you could hear those crows. They're just singing away. I don't know, today just feels like a bit of a crossover point. You know, if summer's not disappeared, autumn hasn't completely arrived. We're standing somewhere between the two. And we're doing it during Virgo season, which I think is quite fitting because Virgo season can be a brilliant time for sorting things out before we move further into the final part of the year. So look at your routines, look at what's working, look at what's become unnecessarily complicated, look at where your time actually goes because you don't have to completely reinvent your life. Sometimes one small adjustment to something you do every single day becomes a bigger difference than one enormous change you only maintain for a week. And I'm doing that. I've actually started exercising more, walking more, lifting my weights. I'm putting more investment into myself. And perhaps this is the message I want to leave you with from this Pisces full moon eclipse. You don't have to know exactly what happens next, my loved. You can be practical magic, and still trust your intuition. You can change your mind when new information arrives. You can appreciate what something that once gave you incredible energy. You can recognize that, but also recognize when it no longer fits who you are. You can make space in your life without immediately knowing what will fill it. Sometimes space itself is exactly what we need. If you've been getting up to watch, or one moment, I do apologise, the frog in the throat came back. If you've been getting up, what I was saying is, I don't know if you are a subscriber on Facebook or Instagram, but I shared my sunrise photos this morning. If you've been getting up early enough to watch those autumnal sunrises hit different, like the spring one do. The colours in the sky are something special. And if you're getting up to watch the eclipse on Friday morning, do please tag me in your photographs because I'd absolutely love to see what you see from wherever you are in the world. And if you're staying firmly tucked up in bed at 5 a.m, I completely understand that too. But thank you so much for listening to my full moon eclipse episode. I just want to, before I head off, say I've had lots of messages about advent calendars. They're in production. I'm just waiting on the final crystals to arrive, and then we will be testing the boxes that we've got. We're going for like an open door, pull out little boxes this year. Last year, obviously, I packaged every item individually. I wrapped them, and we had ones like that. Every year, I just like to change it up. I don't like to be the same. This year, I have to say, it really annoys me when people accuse crystal companies of getting rid of crystals they no longer want in their advents. This isn't what I do. Every year I buy fresh. This year are brand new things, all of them. There's not one single tumble, although I lie. There might be a box I've missed, so there might be a tumble in that. There is not one single tumble in this advent calendar. I can't wait. I'm just praying and hoping with my measurements that everything fits. Oh, I hope so. If not, then so be it. I'll have to rethink it. So this is why they've not been advertised yet. I just need everything here to weigh it, get an idea of what this is going to cost. This is going to be worth a lot of money. So watch this space. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for, as always, being excited by what I provide and what I do. Without you, the crystal bulb wouldn't be what it is. I think I gush and say this every week, but it doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm just so happy you join me on a Wednesday or whenever you listen to my podcasts. It's just so wonderful. One thing I will ask though, I say this a lot, but please could you kindly leave a review wherever you listen? I don't know if it's a star rating or comment. I don't know what it is wherever you may listen. It would be really appreciated though. It doesn't go unnoticed, but You are the best. But I will be back next week when September has officially arrived and we'll look at what the new month has waiting for us. But until then, enjoy the full moon, enjoy the eclipse, and remember, the right crystal will always find you. Before you go, I have a very special discount code for you, especially for those of you who love buying crystals. So, the code is Podcast Crystal. If you use this at checkout at thecrystalbar.co.uk, you will get a very secret discount. And yes, it is a secret because I changed the value of the code throughout the year. So who knows what discount you will receive. But I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope you found it beneficial. And if you have, I'd be really grateful if you could just leave a comment, leave a review. And of course, if you have a friend who loves crystals just like us, please do share it with them. Sending you love, sending you light. Have a great week because honestly, my lovelies, you really do deserve it. And as I said earlier, remember, the right crystal will always find you.